This is a preliminary discussion on what makes reality seem real, which I thought would be interesting to do. The phenomenologist looks at reality and figures what he sees is based on something that is real out there, so he reaches out his hand and he feels like he's touching something, so he feels that there's something real that he's touching. This is basically what's referred to as circular reasoning. What the eye sees is confirming what the hand feels, and what the ear hears, and so on is all they're all substantiating one another, but you can't get into this circular confirmation bias. So we assume that because what the eye sees and the ear hears and the flesh feels and so on and so on, because they're all confirming each other, there has to be something there. But this isn't at all the case. It doesn't have to be anything there at all. And we get back to the problem of what actually is confirming all these perceptions, but a brain that is actually part of what we are observing and feeling and so on. But this is inanimate. It's an organ. So there's no reason why the brain would be seeing and hearing these things any more than the heart or the stomach would. So we postulate this thing called the mind, and the mind is kind of the activity of the brain. The mind is all this electrical impulses that are taking place. But why would the brain create a tree? How would the mind know that these simulations coming from the eye is a tree? And when you feel the tree, why would the mind put these things together into a tree and not into something else? How does it categorize all these sensations and smells and things so that it can form a tree in your mind? We really don't know how this could be done if there was a tree, especially since the tree doesn't really exist. It's a product of our imaginations and of our position in the world, like our size, as it were. If we were smaller, we wouldn't be seeing the tree as a tree. It'd be something completely different. We wouldn't be able to get that visualization. And if a lot of our visualization, even so, is because of the eye we have, and the ears hear sounds in the way that our ear works. So these things aren't objectively real. And this is the problem with phenomenology. There's no way to know what is real. We only know what our eyes are telling us, confirmed by what our flesh feels, confirmed by what our ear hears, and what our nose smells, and so on. But there's no way to objectively determine what is causing these sensations or perceptions and so on. And even if we see a tree, what is it? Well, it's a tree. And I say, I see this tree, and the leaves are green and the bark is more or less a brownish color. What is brown? What are leaves? What's a trunk? And so on. What are these things? We define a leaf as a green photosynthesizing organ of a tree with veins and so on. We see it, we describe it. We hold up the leaf, we say, look, this is a leaf, and this leaf is this. So there's a communication going on between people that confirm this is a leaf. Well, I see this. So this, what you're showing me is a leaf. Well, how do I think of this? I can see it, this leaf, but now how do I think about this as a leaf? We talk about it, we describe it, we give it different parts of it names, and so this leaf becomes a collection of concepts and sounds and symbols and all that. And we use these symbols to communicate, and we define words and so on. But the bottom line is that if I hold something up and you don't see something, or we can't communicate, or I say this is a leaf and somebody else says no, it's a rabbit, we can become very confused. And so our sense of reality is tied up in the clarity with which we can communicate things. If I hold up a leaf and say this is a leaf, you can look at this as a leaf. Well, what is this? That's a leaf also, but these two things are different. Yeah, but they're still leaves. And so we get this idea of all these things on the top of trees that are usually green and do photosynthesis and all that is a leaf. But the leaf isn't a leaf. The leaf is a set of coordinates or conditions or characteristics that together comprise the leaf. So the tree, we can't hold up a tree, we point to the tree, that's a tree, that's a tree, that's a tree. They're all different. The little tiny seedling is a tree, the big giant oak is a tree, the redwood is a tree, the pine is a tree, and the apple tree is a tree. But it takes language, and the language in its clarity is what defines our reality. If we can't fashion a concept or conception, we don't have a reality. We have a bunch of disjointed and disparate visuals. We don't have a reality as such. So language gives us clarity about our reality, and it's how clear we can conceive things that makes things real for us. The tree isn't a tree unless we call it a tree, unless we know what it is. If it's just this is a this, or this is, or that's not a clear reality. It's not a reality that can be specified and taken cognizance of. It's just a observation or stimulus. We could feel the tree, we can see the tree, but it's not a tree, it's just something that is observed or felt. And that isn't a good reality. But humans, because of our language and because we can be specific about what we are looking at and what we are talking about, because of our language, our reality is real. It's much more real than what an animal's reality is, and much more real again than a plant's reality. It's the clarity of our concepts that give us our reality. And so the confusion of language and the distortion of definitions is a destruction of reality. It's a destruction of the clarity that we need to have a reality and to be able to talk about reality. Language is very important. It's the degree and the intensity of our imagery, of our concepts, that give us the clarity and the conciseness of our reality. And so the understanding of reality and the clarity of it and the clearness of which we see things depends on our language and how we talk about it. The biologist sees animals with more clarity than a normal person who just sees the outward thing of a dog or cat and so on, and doesn't understand all the mechanisms and the elements that make up these creatures. So the more articulate you are, the more broader your vocabulary, and the more precise your words, and the more clear your conceptualization is, the more real reality is to you. The ignorant have a very fuzzy and inarticulate kind of reality, which means they can neither talk about it nor understand it properly. You need language to have a reality in its fullest sense, and your reality is just going to be as clear and as dynamic as your language is.